Hello everyone. I'm going to show you how to make this simple PDQ tray in Rhino 3D. So I'm going to start from scratch. I'm going to go File, New. I have a template that I'm going to load and I'll explain what that is. So basically I have my units set to inches, so just type in units. Should open a window and you can see model unit set to inches. You can change this if yours is set to something else or whatever you want to work in. Okay. And then the grid, I have each major grid is 1 inch, and then it's divided into eighths. So there's 8 eighths of an inch going across to fill up the 1 inch. So let's type in grid. You can see what I have set. Snapping is 1/8 of an inch. Minor spacing is 1/8. Major grid interval is 8 because it's 8 per inch. Grid count is 200, which if you back up, basically the 200 is how many square inches across and how many inches down. So this is 200 by 200, which is plenty for what we're doing today. I have my grid snap on. I have right now my snap settings off. I clicked on disable. This is the top view. Wherever you hover over, it's going to be your active window. If you want to enlarge one of them so it's your only window, double click on it. Like right now, this is my top view. I'm going to double click to get back to my quad view. I'm going to make a box to start with. So, like I say, with the grid snap on, which is down here, if you look, it only snaps to one of the grid intervals. So I'm going to start right here at the origin. I'm going to back up. Now I could count over 24, which is how wide it's supposed to be, or I can just type in 2, 4, and that locks it into 24 inches wide. Now I know this has to be 12 3/4 deep, so I can just type in, well, I have to hit enter to accept this 24. And then I hit 12.75, enter, and that's how deep that is. Now I can't set the height in the top view because these are both locked and it's not changing anything. But if I go down to my top view, you can see I could count up my 8 1/4 inches, or I could just type in 0.125 and that locks it in. So this box is the size we need that tray to be. Now obviously we have to do a few steps to make it look like a tray now. First thing we're going to do is make an inset. So I'm not sure where in the menus it is, but if you just type inset, now you have to read up here, it says select faces and n-gon. So I'm going to select that face because that's the face I want to inset, and hit enter. Now right now you can see a preview of what it's going to do. Now that's 1 inch. I want it to be 1/4 inch. So if you look up here, it says 1 there, but I can just type in 0.25, enter, and it changed the preview to 1/4 of an inch. Now I'm going to hit enter and it'll make that line part of the geometry there. So there it is. If for some reason you're not seeing this line on your geometry, go to the view that you want to see. Now this is set to render view. Oh, no, actually it's set to shaded. If I go to render, here's this. But if for some reason you don't see it, go to your little, looks like a little screen here. I'm set to rendered view right here. And I think it's tangent edges. So if this is clicked off, you won't see that line because it's all in the same plane. But if you click it on, you can see it. So I'm going to go to this other tool here called push pull. Now, right now we're in our standard tool set here, and this has a lot of very commonly used tools that you might want to see. you can click on an arrow and see what's behind each of these. So for this one, I'm going to use the push-pull, which is also under the solid tools. It's up here. But as you see, this changes when you click on the different things here, but here's your standard. So push-pull, I'm going to click, read up here, select surface to push or pull. So I select that one. Now if I go up, it's going to extrude up. If I go down, it's going to cut into the piece. Now it's going to be very hard to know exactly where we are here. Now our grid snap is still on, but it's hard to get the exact thing you want in the 3/4 view. So just zoom in to this front view. I want it an eighth up. Like I say, the grid snap is still on. If for some reason the snaps were on, it may try and snap to like this outer corner. So it's sometimes you want this off, sometimes you want it on, depending on what you're doing. So I'm going to click here, and that hollowed out the box, but it still has an 1/8 of an inch bottom to it. So, so this is now the base for our tray, but now we have to make a cutting line to cut through the box and make it so that it's the tray shape. So I'm going up to the polyline tool up here. Same settings with the grid snap. Click here. Want a 2-inch lip on here. And I know the major grid lines are inches, so it's 1, 2. And I'm extruding past. I don't know if you have to, but that way you know it's gonna be able to cut. Now there's 2 ways I know to do this. You can use the push-pull tool again. Even though this is a separate object, it recognizes that it's on the plane and that that's what you'd want to cut. So if you do this, cut through it and then just delete your little layer here that you used. Or the other option is to click the line. This little line that's part of the gumball is what they call that thing with the arrows. And this is the cut area of that gumball. You just cut through, and then you can just hit delete and hit delete. So here's our tray. That's the base tray. Now I'm going to go into layers. Layers look kind of like this pie thing up in this corner here. Click on that. Now we're in the default layer, which if I switch to this layer, I can turn this off and on. So the tray was drawn in the default layer. So I'm going to rename this. Rename tray. Enter. So now I want to make a couple layers for the toys. So I'm going to name this one Toy 1. And then I'm going to go here, rename Toy 2. All right. So I'm going to make sure the active layer, now the check mark is what dictates what the active layer is. So I'm going to go here. So I'm in Toy 1. And if you notice, it's a red icon thing here. So what I draw is actually going to be red in color. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to render that way, but that's the way you can recognize what's on different layers. So I'm going to make a box, and it doesn't have to be in place. You can move it into place later. So I'm just clicking on the corner. Now this toy is 10 inches wide. Now I'm in the front view. So I want to, the first one is going to be the horizontal, so 10. Then I have to hit enter. Now that's locked into the 10 inches. Now I know it's supposed to be 8 inches tall. So I'm going to just, while I'm still in that front view, hit 8, enter. Now that's 8 inches tall. Now I can't set the depth in this front view, so I have to go to the top view, or I could go to the side view. And this toy is 3 inches deep. So I'm going to hit 3, enter. So now this is exactly the right size to be for that toy. So I'm going to move this over into place. And because this was check marked, we're in Toy 1. That's what the active layer is here. So you see the red outline, that's because of the red in the layer. Too low, so I'm moving it up. Now the other toy is exactly the same size, so what I'm going to do, if you hover over the gumball, you get this little menu. Now I want to copy this. Now I'm on a PC right now, so it's telling me to tap Alt to copy. So that's what I'm going to do. On the Mac, it'll tell you what to do. I don't remember which, I'm not sure if it's Command or Option or which one, but so I'm going to hold down the Alt and copy it over. So that's the second toy. Now, if you notice, it's still red and it's still under toy 1. So we have to change the layer to toy 2. So I'm going to change the active layer to toy 2, select the toy, and type in change layer. Now, a lot of times, if you just start typing, it'll give you this menu, and you can see change layer right there. Or you can type in the full word if you want, or phrase or whatever. But so I'm going to say I want this to be toy 2. So I'm going to hit OK. And if I click off of it, you'll see this is now purple because toy 2 color is purple. So if I click on the light bulb next to toy 1, that one disappears. If I click on the tray one, the tray will disappear. So that's how you set the layers. Now the only other thing we need to do for modeling right now is to make that divider in there. So I want that to be on the tray layer. So I went back to tray. I'm just going to go in here. Grid snap's still on. Snaps are still off. Okay, so I just made the footprint just by eyeballing it, but it's accurate because I know it's snapping to the grid. So, and I went to the side view to get the height. Now, obviously, this isn't supposed to be a big block. It's supposed to be like a ramp that goes from the top of the lip all the way to the back. So I'm going to do a sub-object selection. So on the PC, it's Control and Shift. Like right now, it's highlighting what it thinks I want to select. Now I want to select this edge, not one of these surfaces. So I'm just selected that edge. I can go over to the gumball and just lower it. Now that ramp is correct. Okay, the next thing I want to do is bring in the textures. Now, first you want to load them. This little paint tube over here is showing you all the textures or materials you have loaded, and right now we have none. So I'm just going to drag a window over here. Now I'm just going to select the maps that I want to go on this display. So I'm not going to use all the ones that are in this folder. So that's it. It's the toy fronts, the toy tops, the tray side, the tray lip, and a solid blue for the ramp and the filler or the other parts of the tray that don't have the pattern. So after these are selected, you just drag it over and not onto an object, but you want to drag it just to an empty part of the window. Now you can do either the perspective view, rendered view, it doesn't matter as long as you're not touching an object. And when you do that, this little window will come up and it's asking what you want it to go into. And I want it to be a material, or all these to be a material. So there, I just hit OK. And if you look over here to my material, which like I say, looks like a paint tube over here, and you can change the size of these previews. Right, so I'm going to select all these texture maps I have here. If you notice, well, if I select on one, it says that the roughness is 0.2, which means it's pretty shiny. I want these to be matte, so I'm going to select all of them and change the roughness to 100%. So now these are all rough maps. Let's see. After you do that, you can change the properties and make it so it's a plane. if you have one of those circles or another shape, like there's like spheres or cones or whatever, but I like to have the planes. I think it's easier to see what they are. So I'm going to save this as default and hit OK. Now to apply the map for the tray, I'm going to start with just this blue. This is the solid blue. I can make this a little bigger, hopefully. Yeah, so this is the solid blue. So there's two ways. You can either drag and drop. I'm going to undo. Or if you have something selected, you can right click on here and assign to objects. So either way does basically the same thing. The exception is if you're trying to, like I'm going to select just this front lip. I want to apply the lip graphic to just that part. I can't drag it to just that because it's going to try and map it to the whole tray. So I'm going to right click here, assign to object. All right, so now I have the map applied, but it is not oriented correctly. So I'm going to go to planar mapping. Now the window that you're in makes a difference here. So, I mean, not for this click, but for the next one. So I'm going to select this tray because that's what I'm, I was looking for the target object. And I'm going to hit enter. Now you can select more than one object if you're doing mapping more than one thing, but in this case we're just doing the front lip. So hit enter. Now it's asking for the bounding box plane. Now the issue is because this tray goes 8 1/4 or 1/8 inch high, we can't just do bounding box for the lip because that's going to be too big. It's going to fill the whole area of the tray. So in this case, we want to tell it what box we want. So I'm going to click this corner and this corner, hit enter. Now you have to look up here, mapping channel 1, which is good because it's the first map we're applying. The blue flood coat doesn't count because that we're not mapping that, we're just flooding it. So that put it right in the right place, right size, all that. For some reason, it looks like this blue is glossy. I'm just going to see if for some reason, yep, I was right. For some reason, I must not have selected that when I changed the roughness. So now it's correct. Now, I want to add that pattern to the side. So here's the pattern. Now, what I want to do is select the subsurface, or just the surface, not the whole. Like if I just click, it's selecting the whole tray. So I'm going to click here. Now that's just the surface. I hit Control Shift. So I'm not sure if it's Option Shift or Command Shift on the Mac, but we'll have to play around with that and figure it out. But now I'm going to right click over here, assign to objects. Now if you look, it put something on there, but that's not correct. So what we have to do is go and do the planar mapping. Now this is kind of a two-step process here. So we go to planar mapping. Now this is the right view. We're kind of looking at the left view here. So I'm going to go to the left view because it's much easier if you're looking at the same side that you're mapping. So it's asking for the target. Now to do this, I have to select the whole tray. You can't just do the sub object to tell it what kind of mapping. So I'm going to hit enter. Now it wants to know the plane. Now because we're doing the full size of the bounding box here, I can keep it at bounding box. I don't have to do the click. So, but I do have to be in this left window. If I'm in the top or the front, it's not going to look correct, or the perspective. So I have to be in this window. Now when I say be in it, just have your mouse hovering over it. Enter, coordinate system, UV. Now we do want it to be mapping channel 2 because this is the second map we're applying. And it's not going to be correct after I hit enter, but I'll show you how to make it correct. Enter. So basically nothing changed in the side here, but that's because the texture doesn't know it needs to be set to a texture mapping channel 2. So I'm going to go here You can double click on the texture itself, click on the name of the texture, and right here you see where it says mapping channel 1. You want to change that to 2, and you'll notice right here in the side it's going to make it correct. There it is. It does take a minute to update. And then I'm going to map that same thing to this side. Now, in this case, it doesn't really matter if it's flipped or not. So I'm just going to drag it over. Nope, I'm not going to drag it over. I'm going to surface select, right click, assign to objects, and that's now correct. So the tray is basically completely mapped and modeled and good to go. Now we just have to do these 2 toys. Now if I want to, I can go hide the tray. Yeah. So might as well do that. Now the first toy is going to be this one. So I want this to be mapped on the whole thing, because on the sides that I'm not going to apply a map, I want this to look like it's just getting pulled back. So drag that on there, go to the planar mapping. Now once again, you have to be in the right window. You want to be in the front window, but enter, enter, and I'm looking up here, enter. Now this is mapping channel 1, enter, and there it is. Because it's the full bounding box, you can just keep on hitting enter and it'll map it to that as long as you're in the right view, which is the front view in this case. So, like I say, I did that because I kind of want these streaks and stuff to be in the sides. Now the top does have a map. So I'm going to go back to my map, and here's the top for it, HTM06. So I'm going to do the same thing where I select that surface, right click, assign to objects, and then I have to do the mapping. Now this is going to be mapping channel 2. So I'm going to go to the top view. This is the object I'm working on because it was asking select target objects. Enter. Bounding box should be fine for this. Now 2. Now remember, the material doesn't know it's material 2 yet. So I'm going to double click on this, and I'm going to click on the name, and then down here, change it to 2, and you'll see it fixes it. So there you go. So that one is mapped. Now I'm going to go to the second one, and it's exactly the same. So this one, I'm going to select the whole object, right click, assign to objects, go to the mapping, planar mapping. I want to be in the front view, enter, enter, enter. Now this is the first map, so 1 is correct, enter, and there you go. Now I want to do the top view, or the top map. So this is 84, so here's the top one. So I'm going to select this, just that surface, right click, assign to objects. Then I'm going to go to the mapping, planar mapping. I want to be in the top view. Now I don't have to click or anything because it's the bounding box should be fine. But I didn't select the object. So enter. First corner, like I say, it's going to do the bounding box unless I tell it what the box should be. Enter, enter, enter. 2 is correct because this is the second map. Enter. Now we have to tell the material what we want it to be. We want it mapping channel 2. Here's the name. Click that. Now as soon as I go to 2, it should look correct. Yep. All right. So now we can go back to our tray. I'm going to turn on the tray. Selecting both toys, and there's 2 ways we could do this. We can just copy it back using the gumball. If you hover over, it says tap Alt to copy. Or the other option would be to use the array tool, but because this is so simple, I'm just gonna do this. I'm holding Alt, or on the Mac, something else. Oh, I think I didn't hit Alt until after I moved it, so I'm gonna undo. I'm holding Alt now before I click. There. 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 All right. And there is our Minecraft tray.